And welcome to another edition of the Action Network NFL Betting Podcast. I am Chris Raybon, your host, joined by my guy, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey, and our special guest, Sean Kerner. We're back to preview the AFC with the AFC South and the AFC West. We'll look at each team's win total. Yeah, let's get right to it because you guys sound focused. So we're going to jump right into the AFC South and, of course, the Action Network NFL Betting Podcast, sponsored by BetMGM. So we will look at their lines for our win totals. And BetMGM has the Indianapolis Colts at 8.5. We'll start with them. Stuck. The Colts are 8.5 with a -150 juice toward the over. So it's trending toward 9. This team is a team in some flux. We don't know exactly what's up with Carson Wentz. They have some injuries on the O-line. How are you feeling about this 8.5 win total for Indy?
Yeah, they'll have, a lot of it is Carson Wentz. Now he's hurt, but going into this year, if you were a believer in Wentz being, getting out of Philly and reuniting with Frank Reich, then you would probably want to buy this Colts team that's going to have an excellent offensive line, even though Costanza retired. They went out and got Eric Fisher, but that's another topic. Their offensive line is pretty banged up. They have a lot of injuries. Who's going to be ready by week 1? Something to keep an eye on. But they have, a good defense, solid defense. Nevertheless, I think, is a great defensive coordinator. Run a lot of zone, just a very fundamental defense. Xavier Rhodes fit right in with that zone concept in his aging years, and I think he's got a good year or two left as their number one corner. But now, Wentz, if you look at some of the numbers, they're ugly. You can't just say it was all on the Philly offensive line and their lack of weapons. So I'm not a buyer. Now he's hurt. You might have, talk of Sam Ehlinger, Jacob Eason starting out the year. So it could be rough for this offense, especially if the offensive line isn't healthy. They are a regression candidate. Last year, +10 in turnovers, 5-2 in one-score games with the easiest schedule in the league. Now, they're going to have an easy schedule again this year. That's what happens when you're in your division. You play, the Jags and the Texans 4 times. But, they on the edge, they're going to be young. So they lost Houston and Autry on the edge, so there could be a drop-off there. They're great on the interior, great at linebacker. So the defense is going to be solid, but just it comes down to their quarterback position. And, here's one thing to keep in mind. This thing could really go off the track fast. Number one, they don't have a bye week until week 14. But if you take a look at their schedule, the first, who knows who's going to be healthy on the offensive line? Who knows who's going to be at quarterback? They start with Seattle. You don't win that game. You then have the Rams coming in. Then you're at the Titans. You're at the Dolphins. You're at the Ravens. 3 straight road games. Then you come back for a free win against Houston before you're on the road against San Fran. So you start 0-5. This thing can get messy quick, especially if you don't have a bye week till week 14. So I think this number is a bit high. It is an easy schedule. A lot of questions. Especially with their second cornerback as well. It's just a little bit iffy there. So there are some holes in the defense they have to address. The offensive line should be good when they get healthy. I think this is a team I'm looking to sell, even though I love the staff. I think they're very well coached, but I think this number is a bit high. I project them at 8.6-ish.
I think it's, first of all, I don't think the schedule is actually easy. I think everyone's just looking at the Jags and the Texans as these 4 free wins, even though the Colts lost. Their only win for the Jags last year was against the Colts. But outside of those 4 teams, you kind of hit on the start of it. You got Seattle, the Rams, Tennessee, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Niners, Tennessee again, the Jets. That's an easy one. So you're up 5 easy ones. Buffalo, Tampa Bay, New England, Arizona, and Vegas, which is probably not the easiest, I don't think. So there's really only, those 4 games in the division and that one Jets game. But I'm with you. This thing could go off the rails early, and it could go downhill from there. Sean, what do you think about this Colts team?
The schedule is still pretty easy. I think, once you go in and, look at the power ratings, I still have this being the fourth easiest schedule. Yes, they have some tough games on the calendar, but overall, getting to play the Texans twice is huge. But
that's only two wins. Like, you can only get I feel like that's over. It's not really an easy schedule. Like, you're talking about Seattle, the Rams, the Titans twice, the Bills,
but they're Bucks. You would still agree that they're a league average team, right? And they have 9 home games, and you just basically said they could have 5 free wins. That could be their floor. Now, granted, they're road division games; they could be tough, but yeah, I have them. Their schedule is the fourth easiest as well. Okay,
I don't think this is that easy. Continue.
No, I get your point, especially early in the season. You don't want them to get off to a slow start, but I think that's why I'm kind of buying the dip here, is because this win total was around 9.5, I believe, before the Wentz injury. And I'm not the biggest Carson Wentz fan, but this line really comes down to his week 1 availability, and he is trending in that direction. I would say right now he's questionable for week 1. Same thing with Quentin Nelson. I think he's ahead of schedule, so I like buying the dip here. I'm on the over. And I'm trusting my strength of schedule. They have the fourth easiest schedule according to my rating, so I am projecting them slightly ahead of the market right now. 8.5, with 17 games, I could very easily see them going 9-8. And they might have to go 1 game without Carson Wentz. I don't think that's the end of the world. I just think this is a situation by the dip, because I was off them when they're at 9.5 wins, but get them at 8.5 over -150. Count me in.
I mean, okay. Outside of the 4 division games and the Jets at home, I'm assuming Vegas, do you have them favored in any other game?
You mentioned the Jets, right, at home?
Yeah, the 4 Jacksonville and Houston games, the Jets and Vegas at home. Ooh. And then what other games would you have them favored?
I mean, if Carson Wentz if he plays week 1, weren't they -1.5 against the Seahawks?
I mean, they shouldn't be. Maybe they were.
Well,
this is absurd. This is not an easy schedule. Like, Carson Wentz couldn't play football last year. Like, he literally forgot how to play quarterback. Like,
they'd be favored at home against the Titans. I mean, they'd be favored at home against the Titans. Come
on. I mean, they would, but they shouldn't be. This is, I don't know. I'm not buying this at all. I'm in total disagreement with you, Sean. This is not an easy schedule, and they could start 0-5. There's no way I'm betting over on a team like that.
It's very possible.
And you have if Carson Wentz is ready to go. I mean, new team after his disaster. So that's just getting back for week 1 out practicing, and then he's probably not going to have his left tackle. And I mean, Eric Fisher isn't healthy yet. I don't know what the update is on when he's supposed to come back, but I don't think he's going to be ready for week 1. That could mean Sam Tevy is your blindside tackle. He's probably the worst tackle in the NFL that actually gets run. So there's some pieces that I'm worried about early on, but I don't hate the approach of buying the dip.
I don't see 9 wins on the schedule, but we got to move on. Let's go to the Tennessee Titans, whose win total is 9.5. And I actually did take some under on this earlier in the season when the Colts weren't a complete wreck that they are now. Now I'm not really touching it. I think the Titans will still be a pretty decent team. Stuck 9.5, no juice either way. What do you think of the Titans here?
Yeah, I make this 8-9. I think the Titans could be in some trouble. Now, it helps, again, to be in this division. If you split with the Colts and you beat the Jags, you sweep the Jags, Texans, and beat the Jets, you're at 6 wins right there, right? So then you got to win 4 more games to get to 10. It's an easy floor, but their non-divisional home games are brutal. The Bills, the Chiefs, the Saints, the 49ers, and the Dolphins.
You mean most of the same teams that Indianapolis plays with their easy schedule.
And yeah, but those are their non-division home games. Like, they don't really have any. They don't have the Jets at home. Like, they go to the Jets and the Jags. There's some things I don't like about this team. They do bring in Julio Jones in, but can he stay healthy? I mean, he's aging, and I think when he's in there, he's still one of the best. But I don't know how many games you're going to get out of him. And can Derrick Henry keep carrying this load? This is what happens running back. It goes like this, right? It's like a cornerback. and he had 380 carries last year. I don't know if he can keep that elite level. You have, a new offensive coordinator coming in, their ex-tight end coach, replacing Arthur Smith. We'll see if there's any drop-off there. The D was just absolutely atrocious last year. You now have Shane Bowen, who's the official defensive coordinator, although the rumors were that he actually was the defensive coordinator calling on the plays, but he just wasn't named the defensive coordinator. I don't really know what Vrabel's doing down there. They do add Dupree and Autry to kind of help with try to find some pass rush. Adding Clowney and Beasley was not the way to go. So maybe they can try and get some pressure. But, they lost their top 3 cornerbacks from last year, plus Adoree Jackson. Janoris Jenkins, solid man corner, but he's 33. Fulton, and we haven't really seen him. You might need a rookie, Farley or Molden, to be the third corner. So very questionable corner group. I still don't think they can get pressure on the quarterback. They don't blitz for some reason. So I question the scheme, and I don't think it's really going to change much. They have a defensive coordinator who's coming in Shane Bowen, but he apparently was the defensive coordinator last year. They hired Jim Schwartz as an advisor, so maybe that helps.
Oh, yeah, he loves to blitz, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so, they were 7-3 in one possession games last year. One of them was they were down 50 to the Browns and then scored a bunch. So really they were 7-2 in one possession games. They were plus 11 in turnovers, and they were very healthy all year. So I think that there's some regression coming here, especially if Henry drops off a little bit or gets hurt, God forbid. If Julio can't stay healthy, I think the defense is going to be awful again. So I think that the look here is the under, despite, a fairly easy schedule and an easy division. I think this is a little high. There's a lot that I think can go wrong.
I'm going to plant this flag. I am not here for this easy schedule because you can only win 4 games. Like I get how you project it. Like I'm doing it the same way, but at the end of the day, that can still only count for 4 wins. Like those teams that are like inflating the strength of schedule, because you look up and down the Titans schedule, and like, again, they have the road game against the Jets, but it's like Arizona, Seattle, Buffalo, KC, Rams, Saints, Patriots, Steelers, Niners, Dolphins. Like this is not an easy schedule.
That's the NFL. That's the NFL. That's everybody except they get to play 2 of the worst teams 4 times and the Jets. So their floor, your starting floor is a lot higher than most teams. And, they're still a league average. They're right around a league average team. So, they're going to be some games where they're 40% chance to win. But I'm projecting them at 8-9. So I see some value in under 9.5.
Don, what are your feelings on the Titans here? Where do they rank in your strength of schedule? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think the 3rd easiest. So
you kind of stuttered there. You're like, do I say it again?
I mean, when you highlight, they have easy wins against the Texans. Those are going to be wins. But when you mention these tough matchups, like at home against Buffalo, what's Buffalo going to be, like -3?
I'm just saying, like, why are we? I just don't think that that should be a reason. Like, it shouldn't just play into the equation at all. It's like, we get it. They have some gimmies on the schedule. Most teams do. They just happen to come in their division. I just think when you look at the rest of the schedule, it's not easy. There's just 4 games that they could win. Like, I don't know. I just don't think it should factor into the bet. I think the market overvalues it.
Yeah, it's probably not a major factor, but I definitely think it's a factor, the strength of schedule. But I take your point. I'm probably passing on this, but if anything, I lead towards the under. Just if you look at last season, just in general with Ryan Tannehill, they seem to always outperform expectations. I had them closer to an 8.9 win team last year, despite winning 11 games. They gained Julio Jones, but they did lose Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, and your boy Arthur Smith.
Oh yeah.
So, they need Julio Jones to stay healthy. This offense will be ridiculous if he does stay healthy, but it's fair to wonder, at 32 years old, is Julio breaking down? If he misses time, it's going to be much easier to double team AJ Brown, stack the box, and potentially slow down Derrick Henry. So I think you're betting on Julio Jones' health. And right now, I don't know if we could do that. He's already banged up in camp. So, things could fall apart for the offense if Julio Jones misses time. Stuckey mentioned it. This defense should be, their main weakness still. I think they definitely took a gamble with Farley. If he is able to stay healthy and play week 1, I think they could bounce back. They have nowhere to go but up. They finished 30th in DVOA and defense last year. So if they could just get league average defense out of them, they could go pretty far in the playoffs. But again, it comes down to health, and I don't know if we can count on Julio to play all 17 games. That's why I'm leaning towards the under here.
Yeah, I'd like the under, even though you mentioned the Bills game. I'm so high on the Bills. We listened to our other episode. I actually think the Titans win that Bills game. This is just a random prediction. I like going through the schedule to get a feel for the schedule. I think Bills get revenge at Kansas City. That's my prediction. The next week they go to Tennessee and lay an egg before the bye week. So it's a back-to-back road game after Kansas City. The Bills win that game. They laid an egg at Tennessee last year, if I recall. But I agree with everything you said, Kerner.
Yeah, the Titans are. I mean, I don't think Julio's done by any means. Last season, he caught 51 of 68 passes. Yeah, no, career high catch rate, career high yards per target. Right?
He's not done.
Yeah,
his body might be done, but he's still elite.
I don't think I think he just he obviously struggled. He's struggled with those things at times, and but I don't think he doesn't give me that level of concern that like a Jordy Nelson at this age, or like an Andre Johnson at this age, or AJ Green for that matter.
Right, but would you agree?
Good.
He's critical. He's critical for this offense to stay together, right? I mean,
absolutely, because you lost so many people, and I know you have Derrick Henry, but I think you need more than just AJ Brown, or you're especially without Arthur Smith there to like scheme up those play actions and all that. Like you have to kind of factor in that there's going to be some regression with Tannehill in that play action game.
Yeah, even Jonnu Smith is gone. They didn't really replace him. So
yeah. Even Michael Pruitt is gone. But no, I think this team has a high kind of a wider range of outcomes, just given the schedule, given the kind of chances or players they took gambles on defense. They have a high ceiling, low floor kind of situation. I think the median is under, but I'm just not as confident in it as I was earlier in the offseason, especially with I think the Colts getting weakened. So not just a lean, I think, toward the under for me, but nothing. I'm not loving it for the Titans. Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a -120 to the under on a 6.5 win total at BetMGM. Sean, I'll start with you. The Jags, Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow. Oh, wait, no, not Tim Tebow, but still, this is Urban Meyer's tenure started off a little head scratching. If you ask me, how do you feel about this 6.5 win total?
Yeah, I would lean towards the over here. Last year, I guess you could say the Jags were unlucky by going 1-5 in one-score games, but they got lucky because it landed them the first pick, and they got a generational talent in Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, wait. Before you go on, I got to stop you there because you just spent this whole podcast, both of you just spent this whole podcast telling me how easy these other teams' schedules were because the Jags were free wins. And now you're taking the over on the Jags because they have to get 7 wins, which means they aren't giving a free win.
Yeah, I never said anything about the Jags. I said the Texans are a free win.
Okay, but that cuts the free wins in half. So then how is the schedule so easy? If the Jags are going over their win total.
The Jags are 6.5 win total. That's not really we're not saying they're a playoff team here. It's all relative, right?
Somebody's got to lose in this division. Somebody's got to lose games in this division.
Yeah, the Texans.
The whole NFL is the Texans NFL. Are going to lose. I can't see it. I'm sorry.
No, all good. But yeah, I'm going to piss you off here, but they have the second easiest strength of schedule. Oh my God!
They can't play themselves.
So, but you mentioned it. I think the only concern here is Urban Meyer. I think it's been an interesting transition in NFL. He's still playing games by even hinting that Trevor Lawrence might not start week 1.
Yeah.
Get out of here with that. So,
what is that about?
I think he's improving, though. You mentioned Tim Tebow. That was a disaster, but he did cut him. So he's moving in the right direction. I was baffled that they took Travis Etienne in the first round when they already have James Robinson. And then Urban Meyer's talking about using Etienne as the H-back. sort of the Percy Harvin role when they already have Laviska Shenault, who I think would fit that role pretty well. So, he's made some fishy decisions early on. So he may be my only concern really for this team this season, but I do think that they're due for some positive regression. I love Trevor Lawrence. He looked pretty polished in his first preseason game. I think he's NFL ready out of the gate. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards the over here.
Yeah,
What do you think
I
on the
actually
Jags,
I have them. Yeah, I mean, I have them the third easiest schedule. But I mean, it's just a weighted average of their.
I know what it is. That's why I'm so upset about it, because I get it, and I don't feel like it's indicative of their true schedule. Like of their true, like it's just weighting the Texans a lot.
Yeah,
no, it's just only 2 games.
Yes,
but
there's such okay.
Yeah, there's other things we look at when I look at the schedule, but that's how you have to quantify it with your power ratings.
No, I get it. I'm just saying I have the same ratings. I just don't put much stock into it because you can only win 2 games against the Texans, like regardless.
Yeah, but it's looking at all the other games too. I mean, if you look at the Jags, like they're getting, they play the Bengals. They get to play, the Jets. So they're playing some other bad teams as well. I think the way to play the Jags, I make them 6.7, so I would lean slightly to the over, but I would buy the upside of Lawrence working out in addition to, we know the Texans, which we're going to get to, are going to stink, right? That's just known. Now, the situation with Carson Wentz could go south quickly. We talked about they could start 0-5. Who knows what Wentz is going to give you? Is he even going to be healthy? And then you have, the Titans. We know their defense is going to stink. Does Julio stay healthy? Is there a drop off with Derrick Henry, after 280 carries last year? All of a sudden, this becomes the NFC East and you win 7-8 games and you can win the division. So Trevor Lawrence could be the best quarterback in this division next year, right? It's not that far away from being elite, in my opinion. Andrew Luck won the division in his first year. If he's Andrew Luck, he can do it in this division. Because there's a lot of other questions with Tennessee, with Indianapolis, and we know Houston stinks. I hate some of the moves they made on defense. I just wish that it's not a well-run organization. You got to hope that CJ Henderson, who had surgery in the offseason, really steps up at corner. Maybe Tyson Campbell, who they drafted in the second round, steps up. Because, I mean, they brought in Shaq Griffin. Meh. They brought in Rayshon Jenkins. Meh. So I just don't like the secondary unless some of these young guys can really step up. But yeah, 0-5 in games decided by 4 points or less. Their Pythagorean win total last year was like 3.7, even though they won 1 game. Their tackles need to get better. Like Robinson and Taylor just have to be better. I kind of like the interior, but they have to be better for a rookie quarterback. But the upside is high with Lawrence in a division that things could go sideways quick for a lot of these teams. And their special teams could be better. Lambeau could be back and Lambeau stay healthy. That will help. Agnew's a good returner they brought in. Cook's a good punter. So, that could maybe win them a game or two, which could swing this division. If everything goes right, 8 wins could win this division. The one thing I also really like is to keep in mind, it's brand new coach, rookie quarterback, a lot of questions, young corners. If it started out bad, right, it could go south quick with this team. But they have 6 winnable games to start. Like, you're telling me that if everything, if Trevor Lawrence is great, they start at Houston. They got Denver at home, Arizona at home, at Cincy, home against Tennessee, and then Miami in London. It's the Jacksonville second home. Like, there's a world where they start 5-1 or 6-0. Now, obviously, it's not a realistic world, but it could happen. So I think that there's some value. I think, what are they, 7-1 to win the division? Taking a shot here because there are major questions with the 2 other co-favorites, and we know Houston stinks.
Yeah, this is another one that I was on the under. It's just historically speaking, there's just not a lot of precedent for a team that was that bad last year to rebound. Like, they will regress, but the average regression for a 1-15 team is about 3 more wins the next year, a little over 3. So it's not like it's major, and they still were a 3.7 Pythagorean win team, but I do like the opportunity for them in the division. I think that is a smarter bet. I don't have as much confidence in them winning 7 games. I just think Urban Meyer kind of puts it the other way for me in a similar sense to like Cincinnati with Zach Taylor, where it's like we just have nothing to hang our hats on. It's like the way everything that Urban Meyer's done, like this team is just shaping up to me is like it's not going to be a smart team. So I'm like they still have to things have to go right, and they have to take advantage of Lawrence and everything to maximize the potential in year one. And this coach is over here talking about that, he's going to battle Gardner Minshew, like the guy who they essentially went 1-15 in the process benching along the way to put him in position for Lawrence. The Tim Tebow thing was silly. And it just worries me that if he's making these decisions that we can see outwardly, what else from a game plan perspective, things that we aren't necessarily privy to, but that may be operating less than optimally, especially because we know, it's not an easy transition going, coming from college to the pros. There's a different mentality. I just worry about this team. I just don't have any confidence in this team. Like they're going to have to prove it to me. So no way I'm betting the over on this team, but I'm not mad at you taking a shot on the division, because I do think the division itself is it could just be so bad. But I don't see really much value on betting on like a median of 7 wins. I think just take the long shot for them to win the division. They may win it like 7-10 or something if things go crazy. So that's what I would do with the Jags. Let's go to the Texans. They have a win total of, it's barely there. This is why everyone's saying all these other teams have an easy schedule, because the Texans win total is just 3.5 stuck. The over is juiced to -140. Would you play the Texans to get to 4 wins? They got 4 last year, but that was with Deshaun Watson. It doesn't look like he's gonna.
Yeah, and they should have won 6 last year, so they got a bit unlucky. But I'm not spending much time on this team. This team's terrible. I had projected as 4. The win total is basically 4. I'm assuming Watson isn't going to play. I hate everything I hate all their hires. I hate the front office. I hate the roster. What Lovie Smith's going to come in and run 4-3 basic cover 2. They're going to get no pressure. They're going to get shredded. They don't have any corners. They have nothing. This team is a dumpster fire. It's one of the worst teams we've seen in the AFC, potentially in a while, and we've seen some bad ones. So that's it. I project them at 4. Their strength of schedule, if you're curious, Raybon, is 12th. So they can't play themselves. I had them at 12th. But that's it. I project them at 4. I think they're going to be terrible. And I want no interest in the Texans.
But if you had a bet, you'd go over, right? Like you can't. Would you go under on a 3.5 in a 17-game schedule? No, right?
No, but I project them at 4. It's either juice 3.5 or like 4 even money. So like I'm 4.1 is my projection, and I'm assuming Watson isn't going to play it down for them. And I hate their staff too. And I was shocked I was at 4.1, but that's how low I am on them.
I think it just speaks to the fact that it's still the NFL. There's still a lot of uncertainty and regression to the mean in these projections. Period. And it's just it's a 3-win team, a 3-14. That's just a lot of things have to go wrong, even for a bad team to go 3-14. So I don't recommend betting the under on a win total this low. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough taking under 3.5. I'm projecting them at 3.8 right now. There's really nothing optimistic I can say about them. They benefited last year from the 7th best injury luck. You mentioned it, they only won 4 games last year with Deshaun Watson. So how are they going to win 4 without him? We're also entering the post JJ Watt era for this Texans team. There's nothing to like. And Tyrod Taylor is not really the quarterback that's going to thrive with negative game scripts. They're in trouble. And I could see them, if anything, tanking, throwing Davis Mills out there. Apparently he's looked like shit. Just throw games and try to get Spencer Rattler with the first overall pick next year is more likely than them winning 4 games. But it's so hard betting under 3.5, especially with a 17-game schedule, because it's the NFL. Anything can happen. But like Stuckey said, this is one of the worst teams we've seen on paper in a while.
You know what amazed me?
I would play over if I really would play over if they played themselves twice.
What's really amazing to me about this team is that, passing efficiency correlates very strongly to winning. And last season, Deshaun Watson averaged 8.9 yards per pass attempt. And this team went 4-12. Like, that just boggles my mind. And it speaks to just how bare the roster is. And I mean, they had Will Fuller last year playing out of his mind until he went down. I mean, I struggle to see how they're going to win 4 games, but you can't bet the under at 3.5. You can't bet on that's just way too far outside the reasonable range of expectations. If you're making a bet like this, I think you lose it more than you win it, because all you need is a couple of lucky breaks. Maybe a team gets injury ravaged and kind of gets just as bad, and they play them, and it's just tough to go 3-14. So I wouldn't bet under. Don't really have any interest in betting over. We could just move on from this Texans team. Let's just go to
rookie quarterback and the Jags. We talked about the problems the Titans could have with their defense, the problems with the Colts could have their quarterback, and this Texans team is 30-1 to win the division. 30-1 to win the division.
I would not touch that.
Hey, no, maybe Deshaun gets the Chargers dropped or something, and it's a good bet, man. It's ish. I mean, hey, there's nothing to say about this Texans team. I'm at a loss for words. The Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, 8-0 now toward the over on the win totals, and I think he was 9-4-1 with the Eagles, so that makes him 17-4-1 over on the preseason win totals. Sean, is Andy Reid going to take his first L on a win total this year? The Chiefs are at 12.5 at BetMGM.
Yeah, this is a team that I'm leaning towards the under, but I'm not going to bet against Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes, especially after their embarrassing Super Bowl loss. Patrick Mahomes should be extra motivated this year. He's already saying that he wants to go 21-0. I'm not betting against that. But if you look at the second half of last season, this team wasn't that dominant. They went 7-1 in their final 8 games last season, but they were the first team in NFL history to win 6 games by 6 points or fewer last year. So they went 8-1 in 1-score games. So this isn't the dominant team that we think of the Chiefs. I think they did get a little bit lucky. Granted, they're going to be a lot better this year. The offensive line should be improved. But this is a team where, my projections lean towards the under, but I can't bring myself to bet against Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid.
Yeah, and the over is juiced up to plus 120. So I think you got to go over. I would never bet. If the Chiefs are like an automatic over bet for me, and you said it, they're going to be better this year. I think a lot of what that second half kind of swoon had to do with the offensive line, and we saw the play out in the Super Bowl as well. They just, they didn't have that same ceiling, and they had a lower floor with the O-line playing as bad as it did. I think that's going to be better this year. You still have Mahomes. You have a motivated Mahomes. I mean, talk me out of betting the over on this ridiculously high win total.
I mean, I make it 11-5, so I'm probably going to end up betting the under. I don't know. I mean, there's some things to look. I mean, look, the Chiefs, they're going to have a really bad defense. We know that, and they're going to have a really good offense. Mahomes is going to win games. I mean, there's not much more to break down more than that, but they could have three starting rookie offensive linemen. So I know that they brought in, they shored up the left side, but as of right now, they're projected to start Humphrey, Smith, and Yang. Those are 3 rookies on the offensive line. So everyone is just saying everything's going to go smoothly. And they have some other injuries, so it might not play out, but that's as of right now, their projected starting lineup. It's Mahomes. The offense is still going to be great no matter what. The defense is going to be even worse. I mean, this is a team that's it's going to get shredded in the run. I mean, they're the first team in NFL history that finished the 25th or worse in run D 3 straight years. And they lose all of their best run stoppers. They lost their 2 best run stopping defensive linemen. They lost Wilson, who was their only good run stopping linebacker. They're going to get shredded again, and they're going to be even worse. But they have a good secondary. They're well coached. They force turnovers. They put a lot of pressure on you. A lot of quarterbacks will force throws. But they went 9-1 in 1 possession games last year. Their Pythagorean wins were 10.7, and they won 14 games. They do get 9 home games. But it's the special teams were really bad last year too, which was really surprising.
Yeah, for the first time in a while.
First time. So we'll see if Butker can actually make a 30-yard field goal. That would help.
Did he miss
yeah,
two extra points in the preseason?
Yeah, he missed
game?
a bunch of extra points, and yeah. It's in his head. If he kicks, they should take penalties and let him kick 55-yarders. But yeah, I mean, I make it 11-5. They're going to need Willie Gay and Nick Bolton, who are really young, to step up at linebacker, I think. But they're going to give up points. They're going to score a bunch of points, and they're going to win a bunch of games. I just make it 11-5. I'm curious to see how the rookie offensive linemen do. I think people are just assuming they're going to be great right away. But even when Mahomes has a bad offensive line, unless he runs into, when Tampa had a great game plan with their defensive line, he's going to be fine. And their defense is, they're going to use a ton of dime. They're going to blitz a shit ton and cause turnovers and get a couple key stops and win games. I don't know if I'll pull the trigger because, like you guys, I don't want to bet against Mahomes, but I do see value in the number.
Who do you guys have number one in your power ratings, Chiefs or Bucks?
I personally have the Bucks by a couple tenths, and mainly it's just, we know, we're going to talk about the NFC, but I know what I have with them. I think the Chiefs defense gets even worse. And then I want to see how these three rookie offensive linemen perform. It might not be two, it might be three. But it's very close. It's basically a toss up.
Yeah. I think the Bucks the projection is pretty confident because they're basically returning the same team that won that Super Bowl. We had a 20-game sample of them last year because they played the 4 playoff games. So yeah, I like the Bucks to start the year. The Chiefs. It'll take a couple of weeks. It could flip flop, but Bucks for me as well.
Is that what you have too, Connor?
Yeah, I have them basically tied. That's why I was curious if you guys had any one ahead of the other, but mine are even.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Especially given what happened in the Super Bowl. I know it's different year, different teams, but still, I think it's fair for the Bucks to get a slight edge headed into week 1. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. BetMGM has their win total 9.5 with the under at -120 stuck. Justin Herbert, year 2, no Anthony Lynn. What do you think about the Chargers?
Getting rid of Anthony Lynn is massive in a lot of these close games, and just time management, clock management, how this organization is going to be run from a game management perspective, I think is huge. The offensive line, the Chargers are going to have an offensive line. You bring in Corey Linsley, that's a huge upgrade at center. That's going to be a huge help to Justin Herbert. You bring in, Filer to play right guard next to Bulaga. You drafted Rashawn Slater to left tackle. There's an actual offensive line. I can't remember the last time I said that. So the offensive line is going to be much better. You bring in Jared Cook to replace Hunter Henry. You have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams still there with Eckler. So the offense should be great. The problem is, how much better can it be after what we saw last year? And does Herbert have a drop off? Everything I saw, no, but we'll see. I don't know how much better it can get. The defense, I think, might struggle. They lost Hayward and Ingram, Jenkins and Perryman. You're going to need some rookies to step up. Rumpf at the end or Samuel at corner. You do get Derwin James back and Tranquil at linebacker, but you lost a lot, and this is a completely different scheme. 180. Staley's going to run your 2 high safety. He's going to use a lot of cover 6. Just a completely different scheme than with Gus Bradley run. I can't think of 2 different schemes. So I'm not sure. Will Staley try to adjust? That's a big question. But the defensive line is really suspect with, Tillery and Jones and aging Joseph. So can he really do what he did with the Rams? I don't know. The roster doesn't really fit here. So, the defense might struggle. This team's going to be in a lot of shootouts. But I make them 9.2, and we'll see if, there's some little things that they can do with clock management, the offensive line now. Just get the special teams to just be competent. They always have the worst special teams and the worst offensive line. They got the offensive line down. You would assume they have the clock management will get better. Now just practice special teams, like just go practice some punts or something. That could help. So I think it's trending in the right direction, but I do have a lot of questions about this defense, how it's going to work in year 1. It's a complex defense, understanding doesn't really fit, and they lost a lot on that side of the ball, but the offense should cook.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I started looking at the Chargers and how they look this year, under the new staff compared to last year. I know they got Staley coming over, good defensive mind, but I just thought this team was going to be in a lot of shootouts. I think they lost a lot on defense. There's a scheme switch. I don't think it's just going to be magically fixed. So this is a very average team for me. Tough for me to call them a winning team and bet them to win 10 games. But what do you think, Sean?
Yeah, so I took this when it was 9. I took the over -110. A lot of the value is gone now that it's 9.5. The over is even money. I'd probably still lean towards the over. I do believe in this team. Stuckey mentioned Anthony Lynn. I can't tell you how much money I've lost the past few seasons where they should have won the game, but due to various in-game decisions, they lost. So I think Brandon Staley, he'll be more analytical and make the right calls. So I expect positive regression there. They had the 6th worst injury luck last year. Stuckey mentioned it. This defense is really weak behind Derwin James and Joey Bosa. They need both of them to stay healthy. If they can both stay healthy, I like them a lot this year. And then they were 32nd in special teams DVOA. Hopefully new coaching will help that. Usually those regress towards the mean. But when it comes to some of the offseason moves, love what they did with offensive line. I think they're going to be a lot better there. Despite the fact they lost Hunter Henry, I think Jared Cook is a good short-term replacement until they figure out, more of a long-term solution there. And then even rookie Josh Palmer, I think is sneaky. They've really struggled to find like a quality third wide receiver in this offense. I think Josh Palmer could be that guy. So I like a lot of the moves they've done. Despite a lot of the value being gone, I still like them over 9.5 at even money.
I think I still go the other way. I mean, this to me, it just reminds me a lot of like the Falcons over this past few years, where like it's a good offense. Defense is probably going to be shaky, but then you factor in they have to play the Chiefs twice. I see, and like I don't like the early season schedule either. I think it's the slate eases up, but you start at Washington, Dallas, at KC, Vegas, Cleveland, at Baltimore. Like you could be staring a 1-5 in the face if things don't acclimate as quickly as possible. So yeah, it's probably still an under for me. I thought it would be closer to 8.5. Then I could see it, but I could see them being like a 9-8 team. Like that's what I would lean towards, but a 10-7, that's like a legit good team. I don't know if they're there yet. I think they may still be a year away. Let's go to the Broncos, who have Drew Lock battling Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Lock looks like he's winning that battle. Stuck. The Broncos are 8.5 to the win total at BetMGM, with the over juiced slightly to -115.
Well, hopefully you listened to our podcast that you and I did in May, when my only win total that I bet was Broncos over 7. So that number has been beat to shit. But I still project the Broncos 9.2. I am super high on the Broncos. Maybe Drew Lock. I mean, there's nothing you can look at to say Drew Lock is going to be good. Maybe he has a year 3 breakout, but Teddy at least gives them a good floor, which I think is important and something to fall back on, because the rest of the roster is completely loaded. You get Sutton back at receiver to go with Fant, Judy, and Hamler. I think that, Munchak with that offensive line, you're going to see a big jump. Bowles figured out at left tackle. Cushenberry was a rookie center last year. I think he'll have a jump. That interior on the rise. Right tackle still a little bit of a question, but I think the offensive line is going to be better. The weapons are there. And the defense, I think, has the potential to be the best defense in the NFL. They upgraded their corners. They have arguably the best safety duo in the NFL. You get Chubb and Miller back to come off the edge. And, Malik Reed showed that he can play too last year. They had so many injuries on defense last year. Mm-hmm. It's going to pay off this year. The depth on that defense is massive. So they're going to play a lot more dime, I think. You add Surtain in there, you add Darby. You have a guy who was starting at corners, probably their 6th corner now last year. So I think that really upgraded the cornerback room. Fangio is basically recreating Chicago's defense, that elite defenses that he had. this is, and getting Fuller's huge. Fuller's going to thrive in his scheme. But this is the 2018, potentially the 2018 Bears. Year before with Mitch Bortles, they went 5-11. In 2018, they went 12-4. Who were the AP All-Pros? Fuller, who's now on the Broncos, Khalil Mack, who could be Von Miller, and then Eddie Jackson, who could be Justin Simmons. And they just did it with their defense, obviously a below-average quarterback, or, Teddy's in there just kind of managing the offense. We know he can win. We know he can cover. So I love the defense. I just love the depth that they built, getting, Purcell back from injury. That's so many injuries last year and was still a decent group. Bad injury luck last year. I think they're due for some regression. They led the NFL in drop rate. So there's a lot of things that can get better. I wish they didn't cut Duffy. Got to get a punter shout out from Kentucky. Their punting is so bad. I don't know why they cut him. But the schedule gets much easier this year. You get Kansas City at home to close out the year. Could be playing for nothing. So that could be a win that would have been a loss earlier in the season. 9 home games, fairly manageable schedule. I love this Broncos team. I love the over 7. I still show some value in over 8.5. I think this is a wild card team.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they could start 3-0. They play at the Giants, at Jacksonville, and then the Jets in the first 3 weeks. So it could start off really well. And I think this defense is just spectacular. Sean, where are you on the Denver Broncos? 8.5 is the win total.
I'm in line with the 8.5 win total. Nicely done, Stuckey, getting it at 7 though. I think this team does have a high floor, considering they could start the season off with Drew Lock just to see if he pans out this year. I think he brings a higher ceiling to the offense. But if he doesn't work out, they have Teddy Bridgewater, to be there, and he could be a better quarterback for the style of play they want to implement with a really solid defense. Stuckey mentioned it, but they really had brutal injury luck last year. They had the 7th worst injury luck. Getting Von Miller back after missing the 2020 season is massive. But it was interesting to see them take Patrick Surtain in the draft. He should be a quality cornerback, but Justin Fields is there. I would have loved to have seen them take not even a chance, hit a home run with Justin Fields there, because without a solid quarterback, your ceiling's capped a bit. So I haven't projected 8.5, but I would have loved to see Justin Fields on this team.
Yeah, I think it's really hard not to like the Broncos. The only thing that worries me is okay, the 2 weaknesses that you can point out are the quarterback position, and then if Cushenberry doesn't take a step forward, or if we're over projecting, if we just kind of take him at what he's been so far, then their 2 weakest areas are quarterback and center, and it's well, that's probably still enough given the schedule. So yeah, I really can't argue against it too much, but I agree, Stuckey. You got a great number at 7. I think that was the play. It worries me now to bet a winning team with Drew Lock or Teddy, regardless, just because those guys I think are still lower tier starters, but it's there for the taking with Denver, and they could be like this year's like that Washington, that Chicago team, or like a Washington from last year, just given his defense, it's going to be so good. So, and Surtain is going to help that. So it's another reason why I have tough for me to bet the Chargers over, because I think the Broncos are a team like that. Those aren't gimmies against the Broncos that the Chargers are going to have to play this year, and then they also got the Chiefs. So it's a tough schedule for them, but I do like the Broncos, what they have on paper. Let's wrap it up with the.
That's why I need them to have a punter though. If they want to win right. The old Ravens teams, they're going to have to punt it a lot and let their defense. I think Sam Martin is still their punter. He was awful. I hope they get someone else to punt, but I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's finish up with Vegas though. Vegas, pretty much year in year out, has one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Their win total is the worst in the division at 7.5. Stuck. What do you think of the Vegas Raiders? The under's juiced to -145, so it's closer to 7 is the real true implied win total.
I make this 7.2. I do have them with the 3rd hardest schedule in the NFL. I like that they brought in Gus Bradley. But they needed a defensive scheme change. And it's just a middling organization, right? I mean, they're gonna, Derek Carr, he's gonna do some nice things. They're probably gonna win, 7 or 8 games. They added Casey Hayward. He's 31. They never can get to the quarterback on defense. It's been a huge problem. They need to scheme that more. They bring in Ngakoue. Can he get to the quarterback? He's and help in that department. That would really go a long way in helping their defense. But it's just a bad tackling team, a bad secondary. Hopefully Bradley can get it turned around. The defense just needs to find a way to force turnovers, get sacks, just get some key stops. And the one thing I'm worried about with the offense is their offensive line is just not going to be as good. You lost Gabe Jackson, you lost Brown. You do have Ignanito coming back, but you could see a step back on the offensive line, which has been a strength. You lost Rodney Hudson as well at center. So you're going to be relying on some new pieces and some pieces that aren't as talented. And you're going to need Morrig, a rookie safety, probably to play that important center field in Bradley's defense. So the defense is still going to be bad, even though I like the scheme changes. And, they'll probably finish right around where their win total is. I project them 7.2, right where it is. And it's just a week-to-week betting team for me in certain spots. Nothing from a win total perspective, nothing from the future. They are who they are.
Sean, what are you thinking on the Vegas Raiders?
I like the under here. I'm projecting them closer to like 6.7 wins. They took a wrecking ball to this offensive line. They're rebuilding that. And then they overpaid for Kenyon Drake to, back up or split carries with Josh Jacobs. That was a really weird signing. But they add some pieces to this defense. Ngakoue is going to be a good addition. Hayward, Quentin Jefferson, Trayvon Merrick was a great pick, I thought. So this defense could get better, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to overcome the third toughest schedule. And they also lost Nelson Aguilar, so they're going to need Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards, one of them, to step up. I just don't know if they're there quite yet. So I think this team's taking a step back. So that's why I do like them under here. It's a brutal division. They're my favorite bet of this conference is the under here.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think when you look at Denver, they're going to be strong, or at least a team that can beat the Raiders. I think the Chargers are a team that, given their offensive firepower, are going to be able to beat the Raiders. And then I think what's going a little bit under talked about is if we think the offensive line isn't going to be as good, how does that impact Derek Carr? Because he's been playing low-key out of his mind the last couple of years in terms of the efficiency. I mean, 7.9 yards per attempt in 2019, 7.9 last year with 27 touchdowns, just 9 picks. If the O-line isn't good, I mean, Carr really was uncharacteristically fairly aggressive last year. He going deep more than he had been in the past. That's how Nelson Aguilar had that big season. Aguilar's gone. The O-line's not as good. I know they added a whole bunch of guys, and I think Henry Ruggs takes a step forward, but still, if this O-line isn't up to snuff the way it's been, I could see it's kind of like the Mayfield thing where it's like you don't know how Derek Carr is going to respond and if he can replicate what he's been doing. And that's just, after factoring in all the other things like that you mentioned, Sean, like the schedule and, just taking a step back pretty much across the board. So yeah, I'm like in the under for this one too. It's hard for me to find an under that I like more than the Raiders out of these two divisions we just talked about. All right. So we're going to wrap it up with the Action Network NFL Betting Podcast presented by BetMGM with a recap of your favorite over and favorite under for the AFC South and AFC West.
I would say my favorite over is the LA Chargers over 9.5 at even money. I think this head coaching change is going to send this organization in the right direction. I've lost a ton of money on Anthony Lynn making boneheaded calls late in the game. I think Brandon Staley will clean that up. He should improve this defense that might not be great on paper. He should get the most out of them. And I think we'll see our first healthy season from Derwin James in a few seasons. So love the over here. And then, the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm all over the under here, under 7.5 wins. This team took a wrecking ball to the offensive line this offseason, and then they overspent to get Kenyon Drake to back up Josh Jacobs. Really bizarre moves. This organization is heading in the wrong direction. I do like some of the moves they made on defense, but overall, it's not enough to overcome the third toughest schedule. So give me the under here.
Well, Sean hit the AFC West. I'm going to go to the AFC South for both of mine. I like the Tennessee Titans under 9.5 wins, and I'm also taking a shot on the Jacksonville Jaguars to win the division at price around 7-1. There are a lot of things. We'll start with the Jaguars. There's a lot of things that could go wrong in this division. We know the Texans are terrible. The Colts have major questions at quarterback. It could go very wrong with Wentz if he even is healthy. And we know Tennessee's defense is very questionable. Can Derrick Henry maintain what he's been doing after all of the carries, almost 380 carries last year? Can Julio Jones stay healthy? If he doesn't, I think this offense is in trouble. I don't think the defense is going to have any real improvement. So all of a sudden, this becomes a wide open division if things go wrong with the Titans and the Colts. And who knows? Trevor Lawrence, I love him. If he comes in, nice, easy start to the schedule, 6 winnable games, this could be turned into the NFC East where 8 or 9 wins the division. And, you have a rookie quarterback that wins the division. We saw it with Andrew Luck. In regards to Tennessee, I make this number, closer to 8-7, 8-8. Defense is going to be terrible. I don't think that Henry, there's going to be a drop off at one point. And I know Julio, when he's in there, has still been productive, but I'm not sure that he can last all 17 games. You lose Davis, you lose Jonnu Smith. So I think there's some regression coming for this Tennessee team that got very fortunate in close games last year. I just think this number is a bit high for a team that should be in a lot of shootouts. So let me take a shot on the Jags to win what could be a wide open division with each of the other teams having major question marks. And I'm going to go under on Tennessee.
I'm going to go over on the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's still an automatic bet for me. I do think the O-line, despite having some young guys, will still be better than it was last season down the stretch. Patrick Mahomes is 38-6. Andy Reid's 8-0 toward the over with his Kansas City Chiefs. I think they keep the streak going. And then for the under, I'm going with the Raiders as well. I just question how well Derek Carr can continue to be outlyingly efficient compared to earlier in his career, now that they switched up the offensive line and almost certainly downgraded it and just haven't seen enough out of that defense. They make changes all the time, but don't really see enough to think they're not still going to be a below average to one of the league worst in that category. And then you're playing a division where not only do you have the Chiefs, but the Broncos are better than you and the Chargers are better than you. So Raiders under 7.5 for me, Chiefs over 12.5. That's going to wrap it up for the second of our AFC win total episodes for the Action Network NFL betting podcast presented by BetMGM. You can find Sean Kerner on Twitter at _oddsmaker. You can find Stuckey at Stuckey2. And you can find me at Chris Raybon. Be sure to also download the award-winning Action Network app and follow us at those same handles, and check out actionnetwork.com for all of our NFL betting and fantasy content. We'll be back with the NFC win total episodes. Until then, let's get this money.